and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. Welcome to May. David said to me, how are you going to introduce your video? Are you going to say, it's gonna be May? And here I am, having just said, it's gonna be May. Welcome to May. That's end of spring, isn't it? June, that counts as summer. So I don't feel like we've had all that much of a spring. It's been very, and even today, it's a bit grey and everything. Hope we're not just going to launch straight into really, really hot summer. I'd like a little transition. She's got a sort of springish dress on today to maybe feel a bit more spring-like. But anyway, we're not here to talk about spring. We're here to talk about the books that I'm planning on reading in the month of May. Now, we've got some shorter titles on the old TBR this month, so there's going to be a few more books than usual. I'll start with, as I always do, my sort of reading projects for the month, and then we'll get on to more of the other stuff we've got here. So first reading project, I started reading it this morning. I'm filming this on the 1st of May. And that's The Archers, Home Fires at Ambridge by Catherine Miller. Every time I see this front cover, it makes me howl. So if you watch my wrap up yesterday, you'll see that I read the first book in this Archers series. The Archers is a radio play that's been running on BBC4 for, I'm sure it's 75 years. And me and my father-in-law are both very into The Archers. David has more recently I've been listening to it with David. My father-in-law was very unwell at the start of March, and when he was in hospital I was reading him the original book of this, and then when he came out of hospital he said, I'm going to start from the beginning and we can read it together. So we read that one in April, and now we're reading this one in March, and this one sort of follows on from the activities that happened in the one that we read in April. It's set seasonally, which is really fun because it's set on the farm. The Ambridge is set in a fictional town called Ambridge, where the farming is the way that people are earning a living. Even more so because at the moment it's 1941 and the war's going on, so there's a lot of sort of like farming that is sort of like farm for your country type stuff going on. But yeah, it's set in months, so it's fun because me and David's dad read a month per day and then discuss it over messages. And yeah, I had a lovely time doing it in April. I hope that this second book is as good in May. So there we go. And it's set before The Archers kicked off, because there's a few characters in here who are very young, who are now very old. So for example, Bert Horrobin is a baby in this, and he's an old man nowadays in the current Archers. So there we go. Next up on reading projects is A Cheesemonger's History of the British Isles by Ned Palmer. I do this thing every month where I pick a book from each colour. My shelves are arranged in colours, and each month I pick a book from each colour and read the first line aloud and sort of battle them against each other, and then whichever book prevails with the best first line goes on my TBR for next month. And this was the one that won when I did this in April, so this is my May read. Can't remember the first line, but let's read it again, which is, and also just saying that, it's unusual for a non-fiction book to win the first line. I think this might be the first non-fiction book that has won the first line battle, because normally it's hard, isn't it, that they're not as sort of like beautifully written as fiction books are, or as exciting as fiction books. But let's have a look and see what it was. So the introduction is called Fresh Out of Red Leicester. Working as a cheesemonger, you get to hear the Monty Python cheese sketch a lot. I'm surprised that did win. But here we are. And I really do like sort of like history of a place told through a particular thing. So the fact that we're hearing the history of the British Isles, and I don't know all that much about the history of the British Isles, but told through cheese, I think that sounds very interesting. So I think this is going to be one that I dip in and out of, and probably will be eating some cheese as the month goes on. So that's that. Then I've got my Patreon book club book, which leads on to a few more books that I'm going to be reading this month. So the book that we've picked for Patreon book club this month is Fun Home, a family tragicomic by Alison. The theme, as you may have guessed, for May was graphic novels. It's very exciting. We've not read a graphic novel for Patreon book club before, and when we were talking last night about I'm a Fan, which was our book for April, many people haven't read a graphic novel at all, so it's gonna be very, very exciting to read one together and then discuss it. These sort of things, the graphic novels, because it's majority lovely illustrations and little sort of text bubbles, these don't take long to read at all. So yeah, I'm gonna pick that up towards the end of the month, so it's fresh in my mind for Patreon book club. But this one, so Alison Bechdel is from the Bechdel test, remember. But this says here, it's a fresh and brilliantly told memoir marked by gothic twists, a family funeral home, sexual angst and great books. Like Marjan Satrapi's Persepolis, which is another great graphic novel, it's a story exhilaratingly suited to graphic memoir form. Meet Alison's father, obsessive restorer of the family's Victorian home, funeral director, high school English teacher, icily distant parent and closeted homosexual, who, as it turns out, is involved with his male students and a babysitter. Through a narrative that is alternately heartbreaking and fiercely funny, we are drawn into a daughter's complex yearning for her father. When Alison comes out as homosexual herself in late adolescence, the denouement is swift, graphic and redemptive. So there we go. So after deciding that we were going to read graphic novels for the month of May, the other book that was up for the vote was Wake, The Hidden History of Women-Led Slave Revolts by Rebecca Hall and illustrated by Hugo Martinez. And I thought, do you know what? I'm just gonna, and I filmed a video where I talked about the graphic novels that were on my shelf, and I thought, I'm just gonna read them all in May. So I'm gonna read all of my graphic novels. I had a friend that did this, I think in March. I remember seeing him in the cinema. We've all got cinema passes, and he was reading a graphic novel, and I said, oh, that looks like a good one. And he said, yeah, I'm trying to read as many graphic novels as I can this month. So I thought, I'm gonna do that soon. So that's what I'm going to try and do, read all my graphic novels. So we're going to work through these ones. But first of all, this was the one, they're so heavy as well. This was the one that was up for the vote alongside Fun Home. And it was close, but this didn't win. But I thought, well, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to read this as well. So this is Wake, The Hidden History of Women-Led Slave Revolts, I've just said that, by Rebecca Hall and illustrated by Hugo Martinez. And yeah, this is women warriors planned and led slave revolts on slave ships during the passage across the Atlantic. They fought their enslavers throughout the Americas, and then they were erased from history. In Wake, Rebecca Hall, a historian, a granddaughter of slaves, and a woman haunted by the legacy of slavery, tells their story. With in-depth archival research and a measured use of historical imagination, she constructs the likely past of women rebels who fought for freedom on slave ships bound to America, as well as the stories of women who led slave revolts in colonial New York. Beneath both is Hall's own tale of a life lived in the shadow of slavery and its consequences. And yeah, it's discussing the illustrations, and you can see some of the illustrations there. It says, strikingly illustrated in black and white, Wake explores both a personal and global legacy, part graphic novel, part memoir. It is a powerful reminder that, whilst the past is gone, we still live in its wake. So yeah, I think it's going to be amazing. I mean, some of this illustration looks so unbelievably powerful. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting this, but I think it's going to be a very difficult read, but an important one nevertheless. And then I've got Alison by Lizzie Stewart. I think this is the one that was causing things to be heavy. So Alison is newly married, barely 20, and struggling to find her place in the world. A chance encounter with an older artist upturns her life, and she forsakes convention and her working class Dorset roots for the thrumming art scene of London in the late 70s. As the thrill of bohemian romance leads inevitably to disappointment, Alison begins to find her own path through art, friendship and love. And I bought this from any amount of books in Charing Cross. Oh, and I got a bookmark with it, which is exciting. So yeah, this is a sort of mixture between, like, you'll see the sort of classic setup of a graphic novel here, like the comic strips sort of setup, but then we've also got pages where there's a big picture and then some text on the other side. But yeah, the art style, it looks watercolour, it looks beautiful. I'm really looking forward to getting to it. So that's that one. And then I've got Tetris by Box Brown, the games people play. This is David's, he's already read this, and I've got to read it soon because there's a film that is based on the story of Tetris. So this is a graphic novel about the story of Tetris. And there's a film on Apple TV at the moment which has got Taron Egerton in it that David's keen to watch, and he's read this, and I said, oh well, I would like to watch it, but can we read this, can I read this first? So yeah, it's all about Tetris. So it says, who will own the game of the century? It is perhaps the perfect video game. Simple yet addictive, Tetris delivers an irresistible, unending puzzle that has players hooked. Play it long enough and you'll see those brightly coloured geometric shapes everywhere. You'll see them in your dreams. Alexei Pajitnov had big ideas about games. In 1984, he created Tetris in his spare time while developing software for the Soviet government. Once Tetris emerged from behind the Iron Curtain, it was an instant hit. Nintendo, Atari, Sega, game developers, big and small, all wanted Tetris. A bidding war was sparked, followed by clandestine trips to Moscow, backroom deals, innumerable miscommunications, and outright theft. So yeah, there we go. It's the true story of the world's most popular video game. And the artwork is very, as you can imagine, sort of computer gamey, with these bright colours. I don't know if it's yellow the whole way through. Yeah, it is. Yellow the whole way through. I'm looking forward to it, and I imagine that's going to make me want to play Tetris. And then the last one I've got is sort of like your more traditional, sort of like comic-y type one, and that's Spell on Wheels by Kate Leth, Megan Levens and Marissa Louise. I saw this on Jean's Best Books of last year and immediately went and got myself a second-hand copy online. So it's a road trip story, a magical revenge fantasy, a sisters over misters tale of 3 witches out to get back what was taken from them. Andy, Jolene and Claire aren't your average 20-somethings. They're legacy witches making their way through a modern world. When a jealous, non-magical ex breaks into their home and steals a spell that could awaken potentials with magical powers, the witches plan their revenge. Travelling down the East Coast, they must retrieve their powerful stolen artefacts and strengthen their friendship, because the big bad is even worse than they imagined. I think I might read this tonight when I get home. We're going for dinner, we're going for lunch at David's parents, and I think I might pick this up when I get into bed tonight, or read it on the sofa all in one sort of sitting, which is what I love to do. But yeah, as I said, in sort of like terms of sort of traditional comic strip illustration and setup, the only one that I've got here that's got more than one colour in it. So yeah, Technicolor here. Looking forward to that very much. Then there's more. No, there's no more graphic novels, but there's more books. So I borrowed this from my friend Emma in April, with plans to, I really do get a struggle with months of the same letter and calling them the same. So like, I always got to call March, May and vice versa, and April, August and vice versa. But Strong Female Character by Fern Brady. Borrowed this from my friend and want to read it so I can give it back to her, because she's got other people she wants to lend it to. So yeah, it's a memoir from Fern Brady, who is a comedian, a Scottish comedian, and I saw her more recently on Taskmaster. Very much enjoyed her. She's autistic, and this is a memoir of her time. So it says here, a summary of my book. I'm diagnosed with autism 20 years after telling a doctor I had it, my terrible Catholic childhood, my friendship with an elderly man who runs the corner shop and is definitely not trying to groom me, homelessness, stripping, more stripping but with nervous breakdowns, I hate everyone at university, at Edinburgh University, etc. Redacted as too spicy. After everyone tells me I don't look autistic, I tried to cure my autism and get addicted to Xanax, and then redacted as too embarrassing. So yeah, I think, like, I mean, I find Fern Brady hilarious, but I've also heard that this is heartbreaking as well as being hilarious. So following picking some graphic novels and stuff, I think I felt a little bit inspired to read some maybe shorter stuff. So I had a little look on my shelves and picked up a few shorter reads and picked these 3. Now, coincidentally, when we were talking last night about I'm a Fan during book club, somebody mentioned that if I liked I'm a Fan, then I'd really enjoy the book Idle Burning by Rin Usami. And I'd already picked this out from my for my TBR for this month, because I was listening to an episode of What Page Are You On podcast, and I can't remember if it was Alice or whether it was Bethany, but one of them had picked this as one of their favourite books of last year. So I knew I had this on my shelf, and when I was listening to the podcast I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to read that. And then the fact that somebody mentioned it last night and said, I think if you liked I'm a Fan, which I really did, I really enjoyed I'm a Fan, then I think you'll enjoy this too. So excited about this. So yeah, Idle Burning by Rin Usami says, high school student Akari has only one passion in her life, her oshi, her idol. His name is Masaki Ueno, best known as 1/5 of the Japanese pop group Maza Maza. Akari's dedication to her oshi consumes her days completely. I can see the links to I'm a Fan here. She keeps a blog entirely devoted to him, religiously chronicling and analysing all his events. He is the spine of her life. She cannot survive without him. When Masaki is rumoured to have assaulted a female fan, facing waves of social media backlash, Akari's world falls apart. Offering a vivid insight into otaku culture and adolescence, Idle Burning is a gripping story of obsession, coming of age, and the addictive, relentless nature of fandom culture. Yeah, well, I definitely would recommend this to people who liked I'm a Fan, because this sounds very similar. It's also got a few illustrations in there as well, which is quite exciting. I like a sort of multimedia. It looks like there's some text messages in here as well, and some... Here's a picture of a birthday cake. So yeah, very much looking forward to getting that. And then I've got Misfits by Michaela Coel, a personal manifesto. I got sent this from the publisher when it first came out, which was a good few years ago. Michaela Coel is the creator and star of I May Destroy You, which is a TV series I didn't watch, but David did. But when he had it on, I was a bit like, I don't know if this is a bit too much for me, but I would like to get round to it. But yeah, I'm really interested in her mind, and I've seen her being interviewed and stuff like that. So I thought this manifesto would be perfect. Also, the end papers are amazing. They've got these moths on. It looks great. Michaela Cole's McTaggart lecture touched a lot of people with her striking revelations about race, class and gender, but in the end the person most impacted was Cole herself. Building on this speech, Misfits immerses readers in her deeply personal vision through powerful allegory and anecdotes from her East London upbringing to her discovery of theatre and love of storytelling. With inspiring insight and wit, she tells of her reckoning with trauma and the metamorphosis into a champion for herself, inclusivity and radical honesty, and in telling her journey invites us to reflect on our own. By embracing our differences, she says, we can transform our lives. An artist to her core, Cole holds up the path of the creative as an emblem of our need to regard one another with care and respect and transparency. Yeah. I love reading when people, that's David with the hairdryer, when people have done talks and then they're put into books. I love that. Then I've got At the Bottom of the River by Jamaica Kincaid. Now, I was sent from Book Break a lovely collection of a lot of Jamaica Kincaid's work. Loads of these little lovely books of lots and lots. So I can see up there I've got Annie John, I've got Lucy, I've got The Autobiography of My Mother, I've got, there's a good few, I think there's like 6 or 7. Can she see any more with her eyes? Can she see any more with her eyes? I know there's more. There is more, somewhere. But she can't see anymore. And you don't need to see me do it anymore if that wild boys movement. But yeah, but this is her first published work, and I thought this would be a great place to start. It's also the smallest of them, and as I said, I was looking at maybe reading some more smaller reads this month. But yeah, this collects pieces written for the New Yorker and the Paris Review between 1978 and 1982, including a work called Girl. It says these stunning works announce a fully formed talent and established with themes that Kincaid would continue to return to in her later work: the loss of childhood, the fractious nature of mother-daughter relationships, the intangible beauty of the natural world, and how to achieve independence in a colonial landscape. And yeah, that front cover is very striking, isn't it? Yeah, so I thought I would get round to starting my Jamaica Kincaid moment. Oh, it actually opens with Girl. Oh yes, oh that looks very good. And then I've got, now I don't know whether I'll read this month or whether I'll carry this over till June, because I had this on my April TBR because I was trying to read all the books from the Women's Prize long list, and Black Butterflies by Priscilla Morris has now made the Women's Prize shortlist. Now the Women's Prize winner for this year isn't announced until June, so there's every chance that I might read this in June, but I'm going to put it on the TBR for May in case I get around to it. But this is set in Sarajevo in spring 1992. Each night, nationalist gangs erect barricades splitting the diverse city into ethnic enclaves. Each morning, the residents, whether Muslim, Croat or Serb, push the makeshift barriers aside. When violence finally spills over, Zora, an artist and teacher, sends her family to safety in England while she remains. As the city falls under siege, Zora and her friends are forced to rebuild themselves over and over. There is a breathtaking story of disintegration, resilience and hope. Then I've got Seven by Fazana Doctor, and this is a book that I got sent to me by the publisher. It's published by an American publisher called Dundurn, and the premise of it, I mean, I'll read you the premise of it, but I often see it on my shelf and think, oh yeah, I really must get round to that, so I'm putting it on. This is also very, very heavy. I don't know if it's the paper that was used, but very, very heavy. It's these lovely floppy ones, isn't it? They're always a bit heavy. So it's when Sharifa accompanies her husband on a marriage-saving trip to India in 2016, she thinks that she's going to research her great-great-grandfather, a wealthy business leader and philanthropist. Struggle with that word. But the mystery, what captures her imagination is not his rags to riches story, but the mystery of his 4 wives missing from the family law. She ends up excavating much more than what she had imagined. And I think that sort of thing very much makes me think of my journey reading about, Henry VIII's 6 Wives. And that's what drew me to this. Sharifa's trip coincides with a time of unrest within our insular and conservative religious community, and there is no escaping its politics. A group of feminists is speaking out about Khatna, an age-old ritual they insist is female genital cutting. Sharifa's 2 favourite cousins are on opposite sides of the debates, and she seeks a middle ground. As the issue heats up, Sharifa discovers an unexpected truth and is forced to take a position. There we go. Sounds interesting. And then the last one I've got is a book from the library. I've got quite a few, I've still got some reservations coming in from one library of books that I've been sort of popping on when I've seen people talk about them. So as they come in, I will haul them and then may or may not add them to my TBR for this month. But this is Metronome, which I originally got, this is becoming quite the catchphrase of mine, from the Sarah Cox show Between the Covers. But this is Metronome by Tom Watson. And it says here, for 12 years, Aina and Whitney have been in exile on an island for a crime they committed together, tethered to a croft by pills they take for survival every 8 hours. They've kept busy, Aina with her garden, her jigsaw, her music, Whitney with his sculptures and maps, but something is not right. Shipwrecks have begun washing up, supply drops have stopped, and on the day their punishment is meant to end, the warden does not come. Instead, a sheep appears, but sheep can't swim. Aina becomes convinced that they've been abandoned, that Whitney has been keeping secrets. As she starts testing the limits of their prison, investigating possible ways to escape, she is confronted by decisions that haunt her past. Little does she realise that her biggest choice is yet to come. And Emma Stonex, who wrote Lamplighters, which this sort of reminds me a bit of, the premise of this reminds me a bit of, says, as moving as it is chilling. So yeah. Looking forward to reading that very much. So those are the books that I plan on reading in the month of May. Let me know what are your reading plans for the month of May. Hope it's a lovely month for you guys, and I'll see you all again soon for another BookTube video. Goodbye!